tell me a little bit about what you were trying to accomplish with the gameplay changes in Mortal Kombat 11, because it really plays unlike any other Mortal Kombat that I've ever played.
Yeah. Well, when you're on version 11 of a game, I think it becomes more and more critical if you want to have the games have the same kind of impact, is to change things up. We were happy with a lot of the stuff that happened with Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat X. Like, we noticed that players were using their resource, which is that main meter on the bottom, throughout the game, to enhance a move when they needed it, to get out of a combo when they were, in trouble. So they never did the super moves, especially at the high-level competitive play, like at the, competitions. So we really thought, let's separate the two so using one doesn't affect the others. We have defensive moves, we have, are on this vertical meter. Offensive moves, enhancing an offensive move is on the horizontal meter. And we moved the super move, which we're calling the fatal blow in MK11, to the health bar. So when you're down to 30%, that's when yours is activated. The whole pace and the tension and the strategy, the whole dynamic of the fighting changes once you get to 30%. We really feel that it makes MK11 feel and play, strategy-wise, certainly differently than any of our previous games.
Can you talk a little bit about what the run button was in Mortal Kombat X and why you decided to take it out in Mortal Kombat 11?
Well, Mortal Kombat 11, we really wanted it to be a little bit more positioning yourself and kind of like, jockeying and what people call footsies and stuff like that. We really wanted to up that part of the game, space control and all that. Mortal Kombat X, our goal was rush down, aggressiveness, fast pace, They're bigger arenas. MK11, they're smaller arenas, the camera's up closer, we have these kind of big close-up moves that you do. Our intention is to have it more, a little bit slower pace, but more strategic in terms of your overall goals in the fighting mechanic. Smaller arenas, the camera's up closer, we have these kind of big close-up moves that you do. Our intention is to have it more, a little bit slower pace, but more strategic in terms of your overall goals in the fighting mechanic.
Who's Geras?
Geras is a maybe I can use the word minion, like one of the Kronika's minions in terms of helping her out in the story. Geras actually was born of a story that we were written, and because he's works with Kronika, he has control over time. He has the ability to, so our designers took that idea and said, okay, let's add some time element where he can rewind where he was, 2 seconds or 3 seconds before the fight. And that's kind of like his unique ability that nobody else has. So, it was born of the story mode, but then the designing, of his character in terms of his fighting, that kind of borrowed from the idea of him being a minion of Kronika. Kronika, as it turns out, is we call her the boss of bosses, like of all the Mortal Kombat events that have happened since MK1, it turns out that she was the one kind of architecting everything that's happened according to her plan, with the goal of having Shinnok be the final victor. And when Raiden kind of screwed that up, then she's like, okay, now I gotta come there, insert myself, rewind time. Her goal is to restart everything from the beginning. As a result, this big phenomenon happens that introduces into our existing Mortal Kombat world characters from the past. So there's a little bit of a kind of like a Back to the Future 2 element going on.
So obviously the gear system was a big part of Injustice 2. We see it's here again in Mortal Kombat 11. How do the two differ, and what's new coming to Mortal Kombat 11 in terms of the gear system?
Sure. They differ in the sense that Mortal Kombat 11's gears is specifically only 3 parts to the character's costume. For instance, Scorpion, it's his mask, it's his katana sword, and it's his spear. And in Injustice, we didn't have the system of like an alternate skin, because the costume pieces basically define the skin of the character. In Mortal Kombat, these pieces can be used on any of the costumes. So we always have multiple versions of Scorpion, multiple versions of Sub-Zero. The costume pieces work on all of the skins, which is like one of the goals that we had. And the other difference is that gear pieces are completely separate from their function. So they're all cosmetic. It's just a visual, and the player programs how it's going to affect them as far as like gameplay is concerned.
Can you go into a little detail of how the variation customization works in Mortal Kombat 11?
Sure. You know, in MKX we had 3 versions of every character, and the differences in those 3 versions were they would have a unique move to this version, a separate move for this one, and you know the goal was to have more interesting matchups. So you can have 3 versions of Scorpion are going to have a much more interesting matchup with the 3 versions of Sub-Zero than just 1 and 1. MK11 kind of expands on that idea and says, let's the player create their own version. And the way that the player does that is there's this whole menu system which we showed in our demonstration where you can change, you know, the visuals, you know, like I like this introduction, I like this victory, I like these in between round taunts and all that stuff, as well as, you know, their costume. And then like when you start assigning values to the gear pieces, that's where it starts affecting, you know, your resources of how much do I want to have for offense or defense, or which special move do I want to use, and some use multiple slots as if we're really strong. So all those kind of chess pieces and how you arrange them in that menu, that's how the player basically defines their version of Scorpion, Sub-Zero, etc.
Fatality.